Esther Loewy is going to be moderating this next session. Esther is from Upround Ventures, and with her is Lior Weizman from IBM, who is very involved with the startups and the ecosystem that IBM is developing here in Israel. So Esther and Lior, please take it away.
Hello? Okay. We've turned this into a fireside chat, and since Lior and I know each other, I think it'll be a lot of fun and hopefully interactive with the audience. So about 3.5 years ago, Invest Hong Kong came to Israel. Their director general, deputy director general, and they said, we want Hong Kong to be kind of the next startup, well, if not nation, at least the gateway into mainland China. It's very hard doing business in China. People don't understand the culture. And given the proximity, given that management of all the key corporates in China actually live in Hong Kong, all the major private equity players are in Hong Kong, let's establish Hong Kong as that gateway. And so they traveled the world, New York, San Francisco, London, Berlin, and Tel Aviv, to position this, to launch their first Start Me Up competition. Out of about 600 applicants from all over the world, 12 companies were selected, 8 or 9 were the US, the other 2 were from India, and 1 was from Israel. And I was proud that that was one of my companies, for my prior company that I had founded. And thus started my first trip to Hong Kong, China, late 2013. I came back and I said, as an American and as Israeli living here, this is something to explore. This is what we need to understand. Presents enormous promise and enormous challenge. How do we help companies to do that vis-a-vis expansion? And thus was launched my company, Upround Ventures, to really help expansion-oriented startups who have a product that is relevant for China, for Southeast Asia. Now, where most of the companies come to us are after they've sort of graduated all these fantastic programs like our Crowd and iAngels and local Israeli VCs, and getting to Lior, the strategic corporates, the global multinationals like IBM that have launched programs to really find and identify the Israeli tech that has been mentioned before is not just disruptive, but is able to help the global IBM customer base, and they're a perfect entity to understand what an enormous market like China, which, you know, where large corporates are looking for. And so I really want to ask, you know, Lior, given IBM's history and maybe a little bit of an overview of the really long history that IBM has in Israel, the whole genesis behind AlphaZone, and, you know, let's start with that.
Yeah, okay, so IBM is working with startups for many, many years. By the way, something that started in Israel 16 years ago in an organized manner. And we are targeting startups that will be able to use the most advanced IBM technology. IBM is one of the most innovative companies in the world, #1 in patents in US for 24 years. But our biggest clients are enterprises, which are not the ideal early adopter. But Israeli startups are the ideal early adopter. And we are trying to find those startups that are targeting the enterprise market and are both willing to integrate with our most innovative technology. And we are helping them in those technical integration, and then going back to our enterprise clients and trying to offer them not just a very innovating, cutting-edge solution that they will not buy, but a use case to their industry. And obviously, those big clients are not based in Israel, so we are aiming to the large markets, mainly US, Europe, but also China.
So today, corporate venture capital is quite the buzzword. It was mentioned here as well. IBM is a massive machine. How do startups who are concerned about getting lost in that whole web of the IBM machine, How can they maneuver? What exactly can you provide? And what about time to market? Is it going to take them 12 months to get to your customers?
So it takes time. By the way, because it's so difficult to partner with large enterprises like IBM, that's the reason that we formed those units within IBM, and you can see it. Our competitors are doing the same in the last years. We are kind of their internal salespeople. We are selling the joint value proposition that we are building with them. We have the knowledge and best practices to recognize those sponsors within the big organization. IBM is around 400,000 employees, 174 countries around the world. It's not easy for a startup to know who is the IBM we need to target. We know the IBM organization. I guess it's similar in our competitors. And we are building the joint value proposition and the idea for the partnership. And we are working a lot, like 5 months before we are approaching the right executives within IBM with the idea we have. Usually we are targeting specific clients, specific large accounts within IBM, and we are tailoring the partnership to this specific account, whether it's a big bank or a big telco company, a big media company. So it's very difficult to say, no, we are not interested. Because we are coming with a very innovative technology of IBM, we are assuming, but we are also making sure before that this large enterprise did not implement this technology before. And we are helping those account teams around the world to sell the IBM technology through the Israeli startups, because they can present a real use case, a real solution for that industry. I can give you an example.
Please do.
We have a startup called Lior, which is doing a secure messaging like WhatsApp, but for enterprises, mostly targeting banks. So we did an integration between Lior and IBM Watson, which is an NI solution. And then we came with this integration to large banks, which are IBM clients around the world. So we did not just present Watson, which is a platform, a very big one, and it's how to sell the use case, but we came with a solution for banks and instant messaging, which is secured based on IBM Watson.
That leads me to sort of the China market. A couple of months ago, towards the end of last year, we actually at our company put out a whole piece on how Israeli technologies can disrupt the Chinese fintech revolution. And fintech is, of course, way beyond just payments, and you brought up Neuro, which is a fantastic example. And it's that whole idea of understanding what are the pain points of a Chinese financial institution, of Singles Day, what are the omni-channel technologies they're using or they're desiring, what are the O2O. And it's fascinating that you bring that. These are your customers, those big enterprises. You take that sort of know-how, insights of what your customers are looking for, find the tech, then champion the startup to go back to the enterprise. Has that shortened the cycle for the company, the startup?
For the startups, yeah, for sure. Let's take China, for example. I don't have a concrete example for China, but if there's a startup that is targeting enterprise client, we are IBM, so we really control the enterprise market.
You're not an app.
No. But if you're a startup targeting enterprises in China and you are willing to consider integration with one of the latest IBM developments, we will be able to help you in the integration, first phase, technical integration. We have tech guys in our team and girls as well. And then we will take you to the IBMers. We will go to them and we'll present the use case and we will convince them how we can sell the IBM technology to the enterprise through the Israeli startup. It's very difficult to say no. So it's relatively easy to convince them at least to present the joint solution to the enterprise.
What I think a lot of people don't know is IBM's focus on healthcare. One of the batches, I think it was maybe 1 or 2 batches ago, what was it, 7 out of 9 or 6 out of 8 were healthcare-related startups. And, of course, implementing Watson and, Bluemix. And so it's fascinating. I think it'll be really interesting for our folks here to hear a little bit more about that, because I think at first blush, people don't associate IBM, healthcare, in the same.
Yeah, so one of our previous batch was focused on healthcare. We did it in partnerships with one of our clients, which is Becton Dickinson. I don't have much success stories yet from this batch because it takes time for us. The cycles in our accelerator are 5 months. So in those 5 months, we are building the foundation for long-term partnerships. And we are still working on those startups, creating the success stories. By the way, all of those startups are right now meetings with IBMers in HIMSS, which is a very large healthcare conference in Orlando starting today. So my team is there with the Israeli startups doing meetings with IBMers and joint accounts. But I will be happy to give you an example for success stories we have from the second batch, which is almost a year and a half ago, with a company called Zuzna, which is doing a mobile development app. Mm-hmm. So they did an integration with relatively old technology of IBM. It's a year and a half ago, but we kept working with them all the time. So we are in different than other accelerators. We are starting to work when we are finishing the batch, okay? Because the partnership takes time. And Zuzna, it's a great example because next month in the IBM yearly event in Vegas, they will be presenting in a booth one of the most innovative integration we did with Watson. So this is an example for something we did after the batch was ended. They already located to US, so that's one example. A second example is a company called IQP, which is an IoT solution, which are now integrated in one of IBM products. So technically, it's like if IBM was acquiring IQP, they would end it in the same place, but we will not acquire them. We did the integration, and they are now part of the IBM product, but they can still sell to competition. So
going back to the theme of the conference in terms of expansion to China, penetrating China, we talked a lot about partnerships, relevancy. We call it fear and fascination, right? It's undeniably an extraordinary market and the opportunity, and of course, maneuvering the labyrinth of who and what and where and how. And that's why, at least for us, we've been, established on the ground and frequent, visits for the last 3.5 years. Do you find companies, that are creating products from the start, from the get-go, understanding there's a need? I know one of your companies, Buy-Up, is addressing in extraordinary fashion cervical cancer, which, I did not even know this, is the leading cause of cancer for women under the age of 45 in China and India. Every time I say that, I get goosebumps because it sounds, crazy. But they are actually, a product, and they have some investors from China and Hong Kong because it's very real. Do you assess companies for the new batch? IBM is global, right? At any given point in time, given the busyness of what's going on, do you look at things a little differently and say, hey, they're really addressing a need in an extraordinarily large market?
Yeah, obviously it's one of the things that we are looking for. We are looking for startups that are addressing large market because at the end we know we will need to sell the idea to IBMers that they're all salesperson and they're all targeting large deals. It's not small deals in IBM. So we need from the beginning to target those startups that will aim to the large markets that IBM is aiming to. By the way, I also we are only talking about one direction, which is Israel and to China. I think there's a lot of opportunity from China to Israel. I think there's an opportunity, and there's still a lot of space in Israel for Chinese corporation to come and search for technology here in Israel, not necessarily wait for the technology to go there.
It's definitely a two-way street. You know, when I sit and talk to heads of different divisions, whether it's in China or Southeast Asia, it's, you know, the Israelis need to go there because if you're serious, you've got to have feet on the ground. If the corporates, and by the way, corporates are beyond just the bad companies. There are hundreds of large corporates. Retail, financial services are two of the largest. Healthcare as well, because of the aging population, reproduction issues. And so if they're serious about it, it's way more than capital. It's about strategic alliances, helping to, you know, penetration, product distribution. So I agree with you 100%.
By the way, we will be more than happy to share our expertise with the Chinese corporation, how to cooperate with Israeli startups. Which
I think the IBM name is, you know, known, so I don't think you should be having a problem with that. Any questions from the audience regarding AlphaZone, their startups?
Not everyone at once.
They say silence is acquiescence.
Dan, how about you? No? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
No pressure.
Hi. I sense a generational shift. IBM is around the world, but years ago, countries around the world didn't engage with Israel, and vice versa. Even when we come into Israel now, they don't give you a stamp in your passport because there are certain countries where that might be an issue. But is that a thing of the past, or can you be openly Israeli in Indonesia, in China, and around the world?
I must say that I never sense it as an issue. On the contrary.
As someone who travels, and I have an American passport and an Israeli passport, and I'm every 6 weeks or so in China, mainland China, Hong Kong, Bangkok, Philippines. I usually travel on my Israeli passport. Where there's no ability to get a visa or where it's quicker, I go. But I'm introduced and I speak as an Israeli company representing Israeli tech because that's the disruptive technologies that they're searching. Corporates are, they're behind the financial institutions all over Asia or the big retailers. They've got so much data, they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to make sense of it. And the whole, engagement of your customer, acquiring new customers. And as Rebecca mentioned, they're not satisfied with being local players anymore. They want to be global. And they are looking for that kind of tech. And the U.S. is, there's friction there. So I come as a very proud Israeli, proud American, but I represent Israel. So, there's a lot that is not known. So much of it is they know Waze and they know Mobileye. And after that, there's, a blue ocean. So...
By the way, IBM first accelerator is here in Israel. Also, Microsoft first accelerator was in Israel. So I think when it comes to tech, Israel is a benefit.
Okay, any other questions here?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.